أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله.
Hello, welcome to another edition of Let the Quran Speak. Peace be with you and the mercy and blessings of God. I'm your host, Shabir Ally. I'm the president of the Islamic Information and Dawah Center International, based in Toronto. In this edition of Let the Quran Speak, I want to deal with a book that's been taking Muslims here by storm. I'm referring to a book written by Irshad Manji, a Muslim. And the title of her book is The Trouble with Islam, and it is subtitled A Wake-Up Call for Honesty and Change, a book that has just been published a week and a half ago. And the sensational nature of the book is such that it cannot just simply be put aside. One needs to comment on this book. And hence, in this program, I wish to do exactly that. And before I do that, I want to offer you a paper which I presented here on this television broadcast in past episodes. But finally, I've got it in writing. I'd like to offer you a copy in case you're interested in that. The Quran is a mathematical miracle. I now have a 4-page article dealing with that. All of the correspondences of a mathematical nature that I discussed here on this television program in the past is now available in writing, complete with all of the charts that illustrate the points that I've been making. I'd like to send that to you free of charge, just for the asking. Give us a phone call, write to us, send us an email, and I'd love to send you that 4-page article free of charge. The Quran is a mathematical miracle. And now, folks, to the book by Irshad Manji, The Trouble with Islam, a wake-up call for honesty and change. This book is very sensational in the way it's been put together. It is written in a conversational style, so it's definitely made for the public, written for a public audience, and in fact it has got all of the press a book could want. Recently it was the subject of a 2-page article in Maclean's magazine. It was also a subject of a large article in the Toronto Star and of the Metro paper, whatever that is called. Certainly a lot of publicity, a lot of letters from readers responding to that, showing that it is a hot topic. Emails are flying about regarding this book. Now, what exactly is being said in this book? People want to know, and how do we respond to some of the things that have been said in the book? Well, first, some background. Irshad Manji tells us in his book that she has had a wide experience of living with Muslims, living under Islam, and living as a Muslim. She was born in Uganda, and she and her family escaped from the dictatorship of Idi Amin. They came to live in Canada, grew up in Richmond in beautiful British Columbia. And there, eventually, she had an experience of living as a Muslim in a new environment at a time when Islam was very new. Eventually, she started to attend classes at a local Sunday school that taught Bible teachings, where she excelled in some of the studies. She always had her questions answered in a very polite way, received well by the Christian teachers. She used to score points for her clever answers, and eventually she won prizes in the shape of colorful illustrated Bible storybooks and that sort of thing. Eventually, a madrasa was opened up in Richmond, BC, and she was enrolled into that madrasa by her father. She had eagerly expected that the madrasa will be in some way a reflection of what she had experienced in Christian Bible school. But she was disappointed that this was not to be the case. Instead of getting her questions readily answered and welcomed with a smile, she in fact was met with rebuke, and she was being stalemated when she looked for answers to some of her troubling questions. Her experience with the mullah there was not a very good one, and eventually she had decided to leave the madrasa. So she shut the door behind her and yelled, Jesus Christ. She also had a very negative experience with her own father. She describes her father as a violent man, and she tells us about the occasion when her father chased her with a kitchen knife, and so she flew out the window and spent the night on the roof until her mom would come back from work early next morning. And so it goes that Irshad Manji has had a very colorful experience, which she does not hesitate to tell in her book, and that gives us some idea of where she's coming from. She also tells us about the fact that the masjid was in some sense no different from the madrasa, from the Islamic school that she had attended, because in some sense the madrasa was an extension of the masjid. And whatever the madrasa stood for, all of the backwardness that she experienced there, she found the same being demonstrated in the masjid. There was this bulletproof barrier between men and women. The doors that led into the library took one through the men's section, and so the women in that particular mosque were being, in a sense, walled off from whatever knowledge was available there. And she describes the paucity of that library as being not worth much anyway. And so with all of this experience behind her, she eventually gravitated away from not only the madrasa, but also away from the mosque. Nowadays she believes in conversing with God, but not in having the regular sort of ritual communion that Muslims enjoy through their ritual, regular, daily 5 prayers. In her teenage years, therefore, she had taken a turn away from the direction of being a quote-unquote traditional or orthodox Muslim, and eventually she would, in her 20s, she would turn to living a lesbian lifestyle, and all of these now would create for her deep questions and conflicts. How could she be living as a lesbian and at the same time as a Muslim? She wanted answers to these questions. Then she noticed all of the things that are happening around in the Muslim world, things being done in the name of Islam. She reflects back to her own past when her parents owned servants or had servants and treated them as if they owned them as slaves. The father would beat the slaves mercilessly, and she and her sister would not even be allowed to tend to the injuries of these servants. And so all of these left a very deep impression on her. She wondered, how could all of these be Islam? And if all of these are Islam, then how could Islam be of any worth? And now what she's hearing reported from many different parts of the world even aggravates the problem for her. What about this woman being stoned in Nigeria for the fact that she was raped by friends of her father? How could this be Islam? And if this is Islam, well then how could Islam be worth it after all? And so her book, in a sense, is not only a wake-up call for honesty and change, but her book amounts to, in fact, a call for Muslims to, in a way, to give up what we know to be Islam. And unfortunately, as we will see, Irshad Manji does not define for us what Islam is that she would maintain for herself or that she would want for other Muslims. And so we need to explore her book in a little bit more depth and to find out if the trouble she has really is with Islam or is with some of the things that she thought is Islam but perhaps is not really Islam. And we would like to see what exactly is that Islam that is progressive, that is dynamic, that welcomes change, that could be lived in any part of the world, and that could happily be embraced by Muslims even in the 21st century, even in Richmond, B.C., and in the rest of Canada, or in any part of the world for that matter. So let me take a short break, and I'll come back and we'll look at these questions.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله.
Hello. If you enjoy the show, Let the Quran Speak, here is your opportunity to order the first 4 episodes ever to be broadcast on VHS format. The first 4 episodes of Let the Quran Speak on VHS format for just $20, which includes taxes and shipping and handling. Send a check or money order for $20 to the Islamic Information Center, 1168 Bloor Street West, Toronto,